Every gardener knows the deep frustration of watching a prized tomato plant struggle. You bought the best heirloom seeds, planted them in the sunniest spot in your yard, watered them diligently, and yet, by midsummer, you are left looking at a stark, disappointing contrast. One plant in your garden might be a towering, lush green giant, while its neighbor is a stunted, spindly stick with yellowing leaves and barely a single, sad blossom to show for your hard work. What separates a highly productive, heavy fruiting tomato plant from one that refuses to grow? Most gardeners think the answer lies in expensive, store-bought synthetic fertilizers. They run to the local nursery, grab a bag of high-nitrogen chemical powder, dump it on the soil, and hope for a miracle. But often this leads to lush green leaves with absolutely no fruit, or worse, chemical root burn that kills the plant entirely. What if the real secret to unlocking massive tomato yields didn't come from a chemical factory, but from a simple living mixture you can brew in your kitchen for pennies? Let's talk about the biological reality of the tomato plant. Tomatoes are incredibly heavy feeders. They are greedy plants that require an immense amount of energy, particularly during two critical transition phases: the rapid expansion of their main stems and branches, and the very beginning of their flowering cycle. This transitional stage is the absolute tipping point that determines your harvest for the entire season. If your tomato plant becomes weak, nutritionally starved, or stressed during this exact window, it enters a state of survival mode. Once a tomato plant stalls here, it is incredibly difficult to coax it back into high production later in the summer. How do you know if your plants are crying out for help? You have to learn to read their leaves like pages of a book. If you notice the lower leaves turning a pale, washed out yellow while the upper leaves remain light green, your plant is suffering from a nitrogen deficiency, drawing mobile nutrients from its older leaves to support new growth. If the stems are thin, spindly, and easily bent by a light breeze, or if the plant is growing at a snail's pace, it is struggling to build structural cellulose. Perhaps most frustratingly of all, you might see a few flower buds appear, only for them to turn yellow at the joint and drop off without ever setting fruit. This is known as blossom drop, and it is a clear sign of systemic stress. But here is where most gardeners get it completely wrong. They see these symptoms and assume the soil is simply empty of nutrients. They dump more and more fertilizer into the dirt, yet the plant continues to decline. Why? Because the problem is not a lack of nutrients in the soil, it is a breakdown in the soil's delivery system. The real engine of a tomato plant's health is its root system and the surrounding soil microbiome, a delicate, invisible ecosystem known as the rhizosphere. Without a thriving population of beneficial microorganisms, your plant's roots are essentially locked in a sterile medium, unable to absorb the minerals already present in the ground. If the soil biology is dead, your plants will starve, no matter how much synthetic fertilizer you pour on top. To fix the plant, we must first bring the soil back to life. Here's where the real secret begins. To wake up a sleeping soil microbiome and supercharge your tomato roots, we don't need synthetic chemicals. Instead, we are going to craft a living, biological elixir using 5 simple ingredients that work in perfect synergy. Each of these ingredients serves a highly specific, scientifically backed purpose, and when combined correctly, they create a powerful catalyst for root development and nutrient uptake. We begin with our base, 400 milliliters of clean, room temperature water. Most gardeners don't know this, but using municipal tap water straight from the hose can completely ruin this mixture. Tap water is treated with chlorine or chloramines designed specifically to kill bacteria. If you use chlorinated water, you will destroy the very microorganisms we are trying to cultivate. Always use rainwater, filtered water, or let your tap water sit out in an open container for 24 hours to allow the chlorine to gas off naturally. Next, we add 100 milliliters of fresh buttermilk. Buttermilk is a goldmine for organic gardeners. It is packed with lactic acid bacteria, primarily lactobacillus. When introduced to the soil, these beneficial bacteria act as a powerful probiotic. They go to work immediately, breaking down complex organic matter into simple bioavailable nutrients that tomato roots can easily drink in. Furthermore, lactic acid bacteria slightly lower the localized soil pH around the root zone, which temporarily unlocks vital micronutrients like iron, manganese, and phosphorus that are otherwise bound tightly to soil particles. These bacteria also act as a natural shield, outcompeting harmful soil-borne pathogens that cause root rot and wilt. To this acidic probiotic base, we add 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast. Yeast is not just for baking bread. It is a single-celled fungus belonging to the species Saccharomyces cerevisiae. In the soil, yeast acts as a powerful biostimulant. As the yeast cells interact with the water and nutrients, they release a treasure trove of amino acids, B-complex vitamins, and natural plant hormones like auxins and cytokinins. These compounds signal the tomato plant to rapidly expand its root system, producing thousands of microscopic root hairs. These tiny root hairs are the primary channels through which a plant absorbs water and nutrients. By multiplying them, you dramatically increase the plant's drought tolerance and feeding capacity. This is the step many people skip, and it is the exact reason why they don't see the mind-blowing results they expect. Microorganisms are living creatures, and like any living thing, they need energy to function. To activate the yeast and bacteria, we must provide them with a high-quality fuel source. Add half a teaspoon of raw, natural honey to the mixture. Honey is composed of simple sugars, fructose and glucose, which are incredibly easy for microbes to digest. This burst of clean energy acts as an ignition switch, causing the microbial population to explode in number and activity. Without this sugar source, the yeast will remain largely dormant, and the effectiveness of your brew will be cut in half. Finally, we add half a teaspoon of garlic powder. This might sound like we are making a pasta sauce rather than a fertilizer, but garlic is a secret weapon in organic horticulture. Garlic contains a sulfur compound called allicin, which possesses potent natural antimicrobial, antifungal, and insect-repelling properties. When absorbed systemically through the tomato's root system, it helps strengthen the plant's natural defense mechanisms against common fungal threats like early blight and root knot nematodes, while discouraging soil-dwelling pests from chewing on the delicate root tips. Once all 5 ingredients are combined in your jar, stir the mixture thoroughly until the honey is completely dissolved and the yeast is fully suspended. Now we must let nature do its work. Let the mixture sit undisturbed at room temperature for approximately 2 hours. What happens during this fermentation window is nothing short of miraculous. At the microscopic level, the yeast consumes the simple sugars in the honey, waking up from its slumber and multiplying rapidly. The lactic acid bacteria from the buttermilk feast on the nutrients, producing beneficial enzymes and organic acids. You will notice small bubbles forming on the surface and a pleasant, yeasty, slightly sour aroma wafting from the container. This is the sign of a healthy, active fermentation. After 2 hours, give the mixture another thorough stir to redistribute the settled yeast and bacteria. But do not pour this concentrated solution directly onto your plants just yet. What happened next in my early gardening days taught me a valuable lesson. Concentrated biological mixtures can cause osmotic shock to delicate plant roots if applied undiluted. To make this elixir safe and highly absorbable, we must dilute it. Pour your fermented mixture into a clean watering can and add exactly 1 liter of clean, room temperature water. Stir or shake the can gently to ensure the solution is completely uniform. This dilution step reduces the concentration of dissolved solids, allowing the soil to absorb the liquid like a sponge and preventing any risk of root shock. Timing and target selection are critical when applying this biological booster. This mixture is formulated specifically for mature tomato plants that are actively growing or just beginning to push out their first yellow blossoms. This is the exact stage when the plant's internal hormone levels are shifting and its demand for micronutrients is at an all-time high. Do not use this mixture on very young, newly sprouted seedlings. Their root systems are still incredibly fragile and lack the structural maturity to handle such a concentrated burst of microbial activity. Wait until your plants have been in the ground or their final containers for at least 3 to 4 weeks before administering their first dose. Before you pour a single drop, there is a crucial soil preparation step that most gardeners overlook. Take a few minutes to gently pull any weeds growing around the base of your tomato plants. Weeds are aggressive competitors that will happily steal this nutrient-rich drink before your tomatoes can get to it. Once the soil is clear, take a hand fork and very lightly loosen the top inch of soil around the drip line of the plant, being extremely careful not to damage any shallow roots. This simple act of aeration breaks up any compacted crust on the soil surface, allowing oxygen to penetrate deep into the dirt. Oxygen is the lifeblood of aerobic soil microbes. By aerating the soil, you ensure that the beneficial bacteria and yeast in your mixture have the oxygen they need to survive and colonize the root zone. Now water the mixture directly onto the loosened soil at the base of the plant. Avoid splashing the leaves. Tomato foliage is highly susceptible to fungal spores that thrive in wet, humid conditions. By keeping the application strictly focused on the soil, you deliver the nutrients directly to the root zone while keeping the canopy dry and disease-free. To achieve the absolute best results, consistency is key. During the stable vegetative growth stage, applying this mixture twice a month is more than enough to maintain a thriving, active microbial population in your soil without risking nutrient overload. However, here's where the real magic happens. As your tomato plants transition fully into their heavy flowering and early fruit setting stage, their metabolic rate spikes. During this high-energy window, you can safely increase the application frequency to once every 10 to 15 days. This increased frequency provides a steady, reliable stream of biological catalysts right when the plant is working overtime to build flowers and develop juicy, sugar-rich tomatoes. The results became visible just days later after your first application. What happened next surprised me the first time I tried it, and it continues to amaze me every single season. Within 3 to 5 days, you will notice a distinct change in the turgor pressure of the plant. The leaves will look perkier, reaching upward toward the sun with renewed vigor. By the second week, the pale, yellowing tones will begin to fade, replaced by a deep, rich, velvety green that radiates health. The main stem will noticeably thicken, developing a sturdy, woody strength capable of supporting heavy yields. But the real show begins around week 3 or 4. You will see an absolute explosion of bright yellow blossoms. Because the root system is now incredibly strong and supported by a diverse microbiome, the rate of blossom drop will plummet. Almost every single flower will successfully pollinate and set fruit. The developing tomatoes will grow rapidly, boasting smooth, blemish-free skins and a robust resistance to environmental stressors like heat waves and dry spells. To maximize the impact of this liquid gold, seasoned gardeners always pair it with a high-quality organic mulch. After watering your plants with the mixture, lay down a 2-inch layer of clean straw, shredded leaves, or wood chips around the base of the plant, keeping the mulch a couple of inches away from the actual stem. Mulch acts as a protective blanket, shielding the delicate soil microbes from the scorching heat of the summer sun and preventing the moisture from evaporating too quickly. It creates a cool, damp, dark wonderland where the beneficial bacteria and yeast can thrive and multiply indefinitely. By shifting your focus from simply feeding the plant to nurturing the living soil, you are working in harmony with nature rather than trying to force it with synthetic chemicals. Your soil will become looser, richer, and more fertile with each passing week, building a sustainable foundation that will support your garden for years to come. If you want to see your tomato plants transform from struggling, yellowing vines into absolute backyard giants loaded with the sweetest, most abundant fruit you've ever harvested, give this simple kitchen recipe a try this weekend. Your plants will thank you, and your kitchen counter will soon be overflowing with a harvest you can truly be proud of. What are your go-to secrets for growing massive tomatoes? Have you ever tried using kitchen ingredients like yeast or buttermilk in your garden? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this guide helpful and want to unlock more pro-level organic gardening tips, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your fellow gardeners. Let's grow together.